Welcome to 25 Days of Cardboard on Cardboard Odysseys. I'm Matt, your guide on this festive journey through the world of cardboard games. Each day leading up to Christmas will unwrap a new adventure in collectible card games, board games, and all things gaming related. So grab your gaming beverage, settle into your gaming chair, and let's dive into the joy of cardboard. Welcome to 25 Days of Cardboard, where every day is a game day and every game is a holiday treat. Thanks for watching. Today we have a deck tech for Abaddon the Despoiler. This is a deck that's really designed around focusing on the cascading ability of Abaddon, enabling it as much as you can, and then cascading. That's what the deck wants you to do. Obviously, that's what the card wants you to do. That's what the commander does. However, I took it to another level. I tried to play as many cascade spells as I could as well. So not only are they going to cascade from themselves cascading, they're going to cascade from Abaddon's cascade feature, hopefully. Ideally, you want to cascade as many times as you can. But let's read what Abaddon does, and let's get into it. So, 2 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. Legendary creature, Astartes Warrior. Trample, 5/5. It is relevant that he has Trample. Mark of Chaos Ascendant. During your turn, spells you cast from your hand with mana value X or less have Cascade, where X is the total amount of life your opponents have lost this turn. So if they lose 1 life, all of your 1-drops will Cascade. If 3 of your opponents have lost 1 life, all of your 3-drops and lower will Cascade. So it's the total amount of life all of your opponents have lost. So ideally, you'll play cards that ping opponents a lot, each opponent, because each opponent will just give you extra value. Ideally, you get to 6 or 7, and then past that, it doesn't matter, and your entire deck will cascade. It won't cascade through your entire deck because it only counts from cards from your hand. But if you cascade from this into a card that already has Cascade on it, then that will definitely cascade, which is great. Alright, so let's get into it. First is Planeswalkers. You've got Gaiadrone Diahata, 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red. It's a legendary planeswalker. Protection from permanents with corruption counters on them. Which isn't too relevant. However, she has an ability with the +1. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That right there is worth a lot. It basically enables almost your entire deck, minus a couple cards, which is fantastic. It puts a corruption counter on up to 1 target creature or planeswalker, so it kind of protects itself while also plussing. And it goes to 5 loyalty from a 4-cost planeswalker, so that's pretty decent. You can also -3 to gain control of target creature or planeswalker till end of turn. You untap it, you put a corruption counter on it, it gains haste. And then also, if you really ever want to, you can get up to -7, and you can gain control of each permanent with a corruption counter on it. So, not too bad. Most of the time, you'll just be +1, and that's all you really care about. Everything else is just icing on the cake. You've got Obnixilis the Adversary, 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 red, legendary planeswalker. It has Casualty X, so basically what happens is as you cast a spell, you may sacrifice a creature with X power, and when you do, you copy the spell, and the copy becomes a token, and it isn't legendary. So you'll have 2 Obnixilises, the Adversaries, on the battlefield, and depending on what you sacrifice, you can do some really wonky things, like drawing 7 cards, which is pretty great at the -7. And you lose 7 life, but that's fine. The +1 ability is, each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. If you control a devil or demon, you gain 2 life. There are, I think, maybe a devil or... Yeah, there's a couple demons in the deck. I don't know about devils, but it does make devils at its -2. Create a 1/1 devil creature token. When this creature dies, it deals damage to any target. Basically, what you're doing here is you'll have 2 different options at the time, because you'll get 2 copies of this, unless you have no creature, which is really strange. But yeah, so the majority of the time, some of your opponents are not going to discard a card because you're going to have 2 of these out there. Are they going to really discard 2 cards? Most likely not. So you'll get the extra 2 damage. Each opponent loses life, and that'll turn on Abaddon. Also, a note about Abaddon. Abaddon doesn't care. He doesn't have to be on the field to see the damage lost. It just cares that it's happened this turn, which is great. Timing doesn't matter. Aura Phoenix, it has to be on your turn. That's the only stipulation. Aura Phoenix is 4 colorless, 2 red, flying, Cascade. It's a 5/3. And then whenever you cast a spell with Cascade, return Aura Phoenix from your graveyard to your hand. So if this ever dies, it's in your graveyard, you Cascade, and you get it back, and you get to Cascade some more, which is great. You've got Bloodletter of Aclazats. 1 colorless and 3 black, flying, vampire, demon. The 2/4, if an opponent would lose life during your turn, they lose twice that life instead. This just helps enable Abaddon the Despoiler. It might be a little too... Like, it's got triple black in it. It's a little risky to play, but the mana base is pretty decent. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is at a $500 budget. Yeah. Uh, all right, so yeah, it's a little risky to play. When I say risky, I mean like it might not do as much as you need it to do, because most of the things that you play, whenever each opponent loses like 1, 2, or 3 life, you're already like cascading for your entire deck anyways. So doubling that, I mean, it's nice. I just think that it basically turns on like if only one opponent loses 2 life, at least it's 4. You can cascade through most of your deck, or with most of your cards from your deck. That's what I'm saying. But this is a flex spot, I guess we'll call it. Alright, Bloodthirster. 5 colorless, 1 red, flying, trample, 6/6. Whenever Bloodthirster deals combat damage to a player, untap it. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat phase. Bloodthirster can't attack a player that it has already attacked. This can basically just go attack, 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 and you get 3 combat steps, which is fantastic. It doesn't untap your other stuff, but it attacks this stuff, so you just can't attack the same player twice, and you'll get extra combats. Extra combats is fantastic with flyers. I mean, flying, trampling. There's a lot of flyers in the deck, there's a lot of tramplers in the deck. Yeah, it's fantastic. Boarding Party. 5 colorless, 1 red. It's a 6/3 with haste, and it has Cascade on it. The only reason it's in here. It's not a stellar creature. A 6/3 is kind of a crap body, but the fact that it has haste and the fact that it has Cascade on it, which means it'll most likely Cascade twice, it's pretty good value. You've got Creeping Bloodsucker, one of the enablers for the deck. 1 colorless, 1 black. It's a vampire. At the beginning of your upkeep, Creeping Bloodsucker deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then you gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. Pretty good value. It just sits out there and just does its thing. And this is kind of the effects that you want. You want these kind of effects where it just does damage to each opponent, and it turns on your Abaddon without having to spend mana, because you want to use that mana to Cascade, ideally. You've got Decadent Dragon and Expensive Taste. This is one of the adventure cards. Decadent Dragon is a 2 colorless, 2 red, flying, trampling, 4/4, and whenever it attacks, you create a treasure token. It's got a little bit of ramp on it, which is great. And then Expensive Taste at instant speed. It has exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library face down. You may look at and play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. Most notably, it does not say that you can pay any mana to cast those spells, but the treasures you'll get from the Decadent Dragon is it'll help pay for that. This is kind of just a value card. It's a little out of place in the deck, I will admit, but I do like the card. I like the adventure portion. I like the dragon creating treasures. I like that it's flying and trample, which is great. It's only a 4/4, but it's cheap, so I think it makes the cut. Dockside Extortionist shouldn't really need any introduction. It's pretty insane. It's going to be, its power level varies depending on how many artifacts your opponents play, but it's only 2 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments all of your opponents control. So the majority of time, this will almost always pay for itself. Enchantments and artifacts is insane. If it just did enchantments, or if it just did artifacts, it would still be insane. The fact that it does both is wild. Yeah, strong. We've got a Tali Primal Storm. It's 4 colorless, 2 red. It's a 6/6. Whenever it attacks, exile a top card of each player's library. Then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Tons of free spells is great. You are not casting them from your hand, so you will not cascade with any of Abaddon's triggers, but the fact that you could cascade with this card and then also get tons of value from attacking with it, I think it's just worth it. Almost play it in any red deck that you attack with. Ethereum Horn Sorcerer, 4 colorless, 1 blue, 1 red. Artifact creature, it's a 3/6. You can pay a colorless, a blue, and a red. Return Ethereum Horn Sorcerer to its owner's hand, and it has Cascade built into it. So this is one of the cool cards in the deck where you can bounce it back to your hand and then recast it so you can Cascade again. This gets you extra value. Maybe it cascades twice if you've got Abaddon turned on for 6, and that's pretty good value there. A lot of times you can do these weird things where you cascade into Mana Rocks, which allows you to bounce it back and then on the next turn cast and do it again. Just, lots of value. You've got a Exalted Flamer of Zench. For 2 colorless, a blue, and a black. You can play this creature. It's a 2/4. Weird power and toughness, but 2/4, not terrible. It has Sorceress Inspiration. At the beginning of your upkeep, return an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard to your hand. There are a total of 21 instants and sorceries in the deck, and some of them are pretty powerful. Really, all of them have their goals, or have their reasons, obviously, that's why they're in the deck. So getting them back at random is pretty good, but mainly what this has is the Fires of Zench. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Exalted Flamer of Zench deals 1 damage to each opponent. This gives you a little extra value. There are some Cascade sorceries that this will turn on, and then you'll get them back randomly, which is great. Florian Voldaren, Scion. You've got one colorless, one black, one red. I don't know what that song was, sorry. It distracted me. So Florian, Voldaren, Scion. One colorless, one black, one red for a 3/3 for a striker. None of that really matters. What you care about is this one right here. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponents have lost this turn. Exile one of those cards and put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order, and you may play the exiled card this turn. Since it says played, that includes lands, which is fantastic. The whole deck is designed about your opponents losing life, so this doesn't necessarily enable that feature, but it just takes advantage of that, and it just gives you... It's kind of like a card value engine. It doesn't really help turn on Abaddon, but if you don't have Abaddon, what are you going to do? Hopefully he'll help. Alright, so you've got Heralds of Zench. It's 4 colorless, 1 blue for a 3/3 flying Cascader. That's the only reason it's in here. If it didn't have Cascade, it would not be in here. Keen Duelist. One of the riskier cards. I say risky as in because it gives value to your opponents and not just yourself. 1 colorless and 1 black. At the beginning, it's a creature for 2/2, by the way. At the beginning of your upkeep, you and target opponent each reveal the top card of your library. You each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. You each put the card you revealed into your hand. This just enables you to damage your opponents who turns on Abaddon. It does give them a card draw, so it's not the greatest. So if you want to get rid of this card, I understand. But I want to give it a shot. I think it's worth it. You just pick the weakest one. You've got Keeper of Secrets. 5 colors, 1 red. It's a 6/4 first strike haster. It is a demon. Symphony of Pain. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Keeper of Secrets deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. So this one turns on Abaddon, of course, and also anything you cascade will be cast from exile. So anything that you cascade into, rather, will be cast from exile, including the cards that will continue to cascade if they cascade. Those cards will also be cast, so they'll do extra damage as well. So this just does a bunch of pinging damage. It enables your Abaddon, and it's pretty great. You've got Loyal Subordinate, another one of those cards that are very good value with your commander. Does exactly what you want your commander. This is the best card, I would say, a best enabler for the deck. 2 colors, 1 black. It's a 3/1 Menace. The Menace is pretty nice. 3/1 is pretty nice as well. If they can't block, then they at least take 3. But then it has a thing called Lieutenant. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3 life. That right there is 9 life total lost by your opponents this turn, which enables your entire deck to be cascaded. Any card in your deck to be able to be cascaded, which is great. You've got Nalfeshni. 5 colors, 1 red. It's a 4/6 flyer. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent spell, the copy gains haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this permanent. A copy of a permanent spell becomes a token. The great thing about being able to copy things is you're casting a bunch of stuff from exile, because everything cast from Cascade is from exile. This is great. You'll copy everything from exile. There also is some cards that allow you, like Florian, allow you to play it from exile, so boom, copy it. A lot of value. You've got Nahab the Eternal. 3 colorless, 2 red. It's a legendary creature, zombie, minotaur, warrior, 4/6. It has Afflict 3. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, defending player loses 3 life. So even if they chump block it, they're still going to get some of that loss of life, which is what you want for Abaddon. And at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, add 1 red for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. If you have the Lieutenant out there, that Lieutenant ability, you're going to gain 9 red mana, plus whatever happened during combat, plus whatever else you've done that turn. This card is another GOAT for the deck. A lot of good synergy. You got Nightscape Familiar. This is 1 colorless and 1 black. It's a zombie, 1/1. Blue and red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast this turn. This card's a little out of place, I will admit. This card could be cut, but realistically, you want to be able to cast as many spells as you want. And cards like Animar, where it like reduces the cast of creatures, and in my Animar deck, I run a lot of Cascade. It's a Cascade deck. And all the creatures that get cheaper from Cascade is great. So I figured this card here, this discounts all the cards that you're trying to Cascade. It doesn't change their mana value, so they'll still Cascade for, the bigger, whatever the actual mana value is, but it'll cost you less, so you can Cascade more. That's the way I see it. Pretty good. You got Noise Marine, 4 colorless and 1 red. It's a 3/2 creature. It has Cascade on it, which is fantastic, but then it also has this thing called Sonic Blaster. When Noise Marine enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to the number of spells you've cast this turn to any target. So, good targeted removal, or, of course, in a way to turn on Abaddon a little bit better. It has Cascade as well. If it didn't have Cascade, you wouldn't run it. You've got Plarganasari, 3 colorless and 2 red for a 5/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other color cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. This is just great value. It's not necessarily like any kind of synergistic with the deck, but I think like similar to like Atali Primal Storm, I think that it's just the amount of value that you get from it is pretty dang strong. You cast them without paying their mana cost. It's just a 5-drop. I think it's just pretty dang good. You've got Prosper Tomebound, another good synergy with the deck. So 2 colorless, 1 red, 1 black. It's a 1/4 Death Touching Tiefling Warlock. It has, at the beginning of your end step, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. And then it also has Pact Boon. Whenever you play a card from exile, create a treasure token. Every card that you cascade off of will be giving you a treasure token with this guy on the battlefield. That is pretty dang strong. So, fantastic. Rakdos, Lord of Riots. This is kind of... This I will say Abaddon is very similar in the way that this deck is played, a Rakdos deck. You can actually just play a Rakdos deck with like a bunch of like colorless creatures and just like spit out colorless creatures like Eldrazi's, for instance. Abaddon and Rakdos are basically trying to do the same thing, having opponents lose life equal to, and then enable something. So because we're already on that plan, playing Rakdos just makes sense to me. You are playing 26 creatures, so there's plenty of creatures to gain the value from. Just getting rid of all the colorless is great. What it actually does, for double red, double black, it's a 6/6 flying trampler, but it can't be cast unless an opponent has lost life this turn. Well, you know, that's the whole goal of the deck. So if an opponent hasn't lost life, then, well, the deck's failing. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. So, pretty good cost reduction there. And it's a 6/6 flying trampler, so great. You've got Sakashima Prodigy, 4 colorless and 2 blue, flash, cascade, and then you may have Sakashima Prodigy enter the battlefield as a copy of any permanent enter the battlefield this turn, and it's a 3/1. Any permanent. If your opponent plays the One Ring, boom, flash this bad boy in there, you get your cascade trigger, you get yourself a One Ring. Any good planeswalker, any good creature, any permanent, any good permanent. You have also a good permanent. It has Cascade on it as well. Very flexible. You just note that it has to be something that's entered the battlefield this turn. So this does allow, like, once you have this in your hand, you kind of have to keep mana up to, like, see what the best target is. So that does suck a little bit, but because it has Flash, it's great. And you also get Cascade. You've got Tectonic Giant, another go to the deck. It just does everything you want to do. So for 2 colorless and 2 red, it's a 3/4 Elemental Giant. Whenever it attacks or becomes the target of a spell an opponent controls, choose 1. Tectonic Giant deals 3 damage to each opponent. The total's 9, which is great. And then exile the top 2 cards of your library. Choose 1 of them until the end of turn. You may play that card. I like when it says play and not cast because it allows you to play lands, which is great. You've got Thermo Alchemist, pretty good staple in a lot of decks that are typically trying to cast, storm cards. Like they're trying to cast a lot of instant sorceries. This doesn't really do that, but just for a simple tap, you can deal 1 damage to each opponent. So that's pretty good. And then whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you untap Thermo Alchemist. I always want to call it Thermo Metal. I don't know why. But it is 1 colorless, 1 red. It's an 0/3 defender. So it's just there to tap and untap. You got Wild Magic Sorcerer, one of the strange fun cards that just creates like little chains. Only once each turn, but it's not too big a deal. So for 3 colors, 1 red, it's a 4/3 Orc Shaman. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. When you cast your first spell from exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card that costs less. You may cast without paying its mana cost. You cascade from cascading, so anything you cast from exile will then cascade. So the deck's trying to cascade, so you're going to cascade, and then you're going to cascade your cascades. Ancestral Vision. Okay, so this is another part of the decks that's a little strange. Normally, cards like this are bad, right? You waiting 4 turns is pretty bad, but drawing 3 cards is good. What if I told you that if you cascade into this, you just cast it immediately for free and you don't have to suspend it? You draw those cards. You'd say that's pretty good, right? It does cause a little bit of weirdness when, like, say you draw the card and you don't want that card in your hand. You could just suspend it and just reap the benefits whenever it goes off. There's one specific way to get it back into the deck if you don't want it in your hand with Brainstorm. So there are other cards like this as well you'll see that have Suspend that you'll take advantage of. But the occasions where you can cast a 1-drop and cascade into these cards, I think that is just worth it in the deck for the small chance of, having them in your hand or whatever. You don't want them in your hand, trust me. Realistically, there probably should be something in the deck that maybe is like a dependable way to like get it back into the deck, but they're just brainstorm. Last one in the deck, you always need a board wipe. This is a pretty good board wipe. It's 9 mana, but it costs 1 less for each creature on the battlefield. It does 13 damage each creature. You've got Deny Reality. This is a really bad card, but it has Cascade on it, so I had to run it. 3 colorless, 1 blue, 1 black. It has Cascade, and then it returns target permanent to its owner's hand. So, like I said, pretty dang bad. However, one of the things I like to do in my Animar deck is to bounce my own stuff, so then I can recast and get more value. So you could return one of your own permanents to your hand and then recast it to cascade some more. Yeah. Because it cascades is the only reason it's in here, really. Feed the Swarm. Grixis doesn't have easy ways to get rid of enchantments, typically. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to use Feed the Swarm. For 1 colorless and 1 black, it is a sorcery speed, which sucks. I wish it was instant, but might be a little too strong at instant speed. But it's probably still fine at instant speed. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls. You lose life equal to its permanent's mana value. It is what it is. Inevitable Betrayal. This cascading into this is going to feel so good. Search target opponent's library for a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield under your control. And they shuffle. You just get their creature. Their best creature in their deck. You get to go through their entire deck and get their best creature for free. Pretty dang good. Into the Time Vortex, one of the new cards from Doctor Who. 4 colorless and 1 red. It's a sorcery, it has Cascade, and it has Rebound. Just note that Rebound is not casting it from your hand. So you're not going to get the Cascade if you had some way to like turn on Abaddon prior to this being cast or whatever, or this resolving. Or I guess you'd have to be prior to casting, which would be really strange. Either way, Abaddon has to be from hand. Rebounding it is from exile. Just so you're aware. Also, notably, if you cascade into the Time Vortex, you will not be able to rebound it because you did not cast it from your hand. You cast it from exile. So, a little wonky with Into the Time Vortex. It's probably not insane, but it has Cascade, so I had to run it. You've got Jessica's Will, very good value card. For 2 colorless and 1 red sorcery, choose 1. If you control a commander, as you cast a spell, you may choose both. You add a bunch of red to your for each card in target opponent's hand. Target the opponent with the most cards in their hand, and then exile the top 3 cards of your library, and you may play them this turn. Great. Mandate of Abaddon. Again, you need a couple board wipes, so this is another one. This is a pretty good board wipe because you get to control how it happens. So for 3 colorless and 1 black, choose target creature you control. Destroy all creatures with power and toughness less than that creature's power. Pretty dang good. I like controlled board wipes. Profane Tutor, another card. It's basically Demonic Tutor, but it has Suspended. Normally bad, but if you cascade into it, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and it's free. You've got Throes of Chaos. It has Cascade, 3 colorless and 1 red, and it has Retrace. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. Most notably, this is not Jumpstart. Jumpstart only does it once, and then you have to exile that card. You can do this as many times as you have the ability to do so. So if you have a bunch of lands that you're just like getting land flooded, you could just keep doing this, keep cascading. And if you got Abaddon turned on, you're double cascading, and just keep replaying this card from the graveyard with your lands. So this just gives you a little bit of staying power. It is only cascading for 3, so it's not that big a deal. But get all your mana rocks out, get all your cool creatures, or your draw spells or whatever. Your suspend spells as well. You've got Volcanic Torrent. This is kind of another board wipe as well. It is a little expensive. There's no cost reduction besides that one guy, whatever his name was. Not Loyal Subordinate, the other guy. Nightscape Familiar. But it is 4 colorless and 1 red, and sorcery speed, it cascades, one of the main reasons why it's in here. But it's kind of a one-sided board wipe as well. So Volcanic Torrent deals X damage to each creature and planeswalker your opponent's control, where X is the number of spells you've cast this turn. So it's guaranteed going to be Volcanic Torrent and whatever you cascade into. Most of the time you'll cast everything you cascade into. There's very few times, that's kind of how cascade decks are built. You don't really run counter spells, you don't really run things you don't want to cast, because when you cascade into them, it's going to look bad. Which does kind of suck. That means there's no protection in your deck. Unfortunate. You're running blue with no counter spells. Feels a little bad, but castigating is really fun for me, so that's why I like it. Oh yeah, there is one counter spell. It's just really freaking bad. Just like this card, Bituminous Blast. 3 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. Instant speed, Cascade. So it just cascades when you cast it, which is the reason why it's in the deck. Then it does 4 damage to target creature. Very bad, but because it has Cascade on it, that's why I'm running it. You got Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. 8 colorless, black, black, red. Instant speed, and it has this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that died this turn. Discard your hand, draw 8 cards, and then it deals 8 damage to each opponent. Exile Blood for the Blood God. This is basically just like board wipe, board wipe insurance. Basically it. It's going to be hard to cast it otherwise. There might be a situation to where you can cast it, without having a board wipe. Like I said, if enough creatures die and if you have enough mana, maybe not late into the game or whatever. It is instant speed though, so it is nice. You have the opportunity to cast it whenever that happens. Yeah, Brainstorm, like I mentioned before, draw 3 cards and then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. You can use Brainstorm to set up your Cascade, or you can put the cards into the library on top of the library and then use like a fetch land to shuffle your library so that if you just don't want those cards at all. But yeah, if you need to set up a Cascade, it also will work. Chaos Warp is just good permanent removal. I shouldn't say good. It's risky, but most of the time it's good enough. So for 2 colors, 1 red at instant speed, the owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, reveal cards from the top of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it on the battlefield. A lot of times they ain't going to get it, but sometimes they'll flip into something even better than what you removed. So it is what it is. You've got Dark Ritual. 1 colorless, instant speed, add 3 black. This is mainly in here for ramp because Abaddon costs 5, which isn't a terribly high amount. But you do want him out as soon as possible so you can start cascading as much as possible. But also, say you also just have Abaddon out and you have 1 damage. As long as you have 1 damage done to your opponents, you'll be able to cast this, which will cascade into any of the free spells, which are any of the suspend spells. So, and then you also get 3 black. Deadly Relic, 3 colorless, 1 black, instant speed. If you control your commander, it's free. Pretty good value. Exile target creature. Yeah, we want our commander out as much as possible, so most of the time this will be free. We got Delayed Blast Fireball, one of those weird worded spells, which I'm not entirely sure if they meant it for it to be this way, but 1 colorless and double red, instant speed. Delayed Blast Fireball deals 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. If this spell was cast from exile, it deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. Instead, has the ability to foretell it, which basically means you can store it for later, paying 2 mana, and then you pay 6 mana for its foretell cost, and then it does the 5 damage to everything. However, if you cascade into this, it just does 5 damage to everything because you've cast it from exile. So, pretty cool. Or if you use like Prosper Tomba and exile it that way, or Jessica's Will, anytime you cast from exile, you just get the extra 5 damage, which is fantastic. You got Forceful Denial. This is the a lot of talking today, sorry. Forceful Denial, you've got a lot of there's a lot of bad cards in here, alright? This is one of them. Like I said before, there's a few of them. The Deny Reality, the Bituminous Blast, and Forceful Denial, they all are bad. But, because they have the word Cascade on them, we must run them. This is a 5 mana counterspell, but it has Cascade. You've got Rakdos Charm, very flexible. I think every deck should have at least 1 or 2 abilities to interact with the graveyard. You want to be able to interact with destruction of artifacts, and you want to be able to ping 1 damage. Ping 1 damage for Abaddon is pretty good, as long as there's, 4 or 5 creatures on your opponent's side of the field total. You'll turn on his entire ability, which is great. Because damage is loss of life, which is great. Surge of Brilliance. This is one of the new cards that I'm testing out. I even think this would be great in Animar. So for 1 colorless and 1 blue, at instant speed, it has Paradox. Draw a card for each spell you've cast this turn from anywhere other than your hand. Obviously, casting it right off the rip just does nothing if you're casting it from your hand. But you can foretell it by paying 2, and then you can cast it for its foretell cost, and you'll at least draw 1. But ideally, you're cascading a bunch, and for 2 mana, you'll draw, 6, 8, 10 for 2 mana. I think this card is pretty goat. I don't know then. We'll see. I have a feeling it's going to be insane. It requires a little bit of setup, but you can foretell it and just kind of just wait for the right time to cast it. It's instant speed. I think it's fantastic. Yeah. Arcane Signet, Mana Rock. Lightning Greaves, protection for your commander. Like, you want this. You almost certainly want this as much as you can. Your commander is going to be a Lightning Rod, and you want all of these. There's going to be Lightning Greaves, and there's going to be the other boots, the Swiftfoot boots as well. Equipped creature has Haste and Shroud. The Haste is nice as well, but the Shroud is the main thing. You want to be able to protect it. Equip a cost of 0 is also great. You got Soul Ring for Mana Rock, Soul Talisman for Mana Rock. Again, typically a bad Mana Rock that I never run. However, it has Suspend. So because it has Suspend, it could be a free Mana Rock. I like it. Swiftfoot Boots. This gives Hexproof and Haste. So like Lightning Greaves, but slightly better because Hexproof is better than Shroud, but this has an equip cost of 1, so not as good. Mana Rock here, Mana Rock there, Mana Rock everywhere. The One Ring should be in every deck, just about. I'd say 99% of the deck should be playing the One Ring. It's insane, it's busted. For 4 colorless mana, it's indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. Pretty good. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burning counter on the One Ring, and then you can tap it and put a burning counter on the One Ring, and then draw a card for each burning counter on the One Ring. It causes tons of value. It just gives you protection. It gives you card draw. It's indestructible, which, you know, it makes thematic sense, but man, what a good card. Probably going to get banned. Descent into Avernus. This card is risky, and I love it. It does everything your commander wants you to do, and I think it's good enough to get there. It is, like I said, risky, so make sure when you play this spell, you just know the risk going in. You can replace it if you would like, if you don't want to go too risky, but this is fun. I've played it before. It's pretty wild. For 2 colorless and 1 red enchantment, at the beginning of your upkeep, you put 2 descent counters onto Descent into Avernus. Then, each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage each player, where X is the number of descent counters on Descent into Avernus. So the very first turn that this comes out, you'll get your 2 treasures, and then each opponent will take each player, including yourself, take 2 damage. So Abaddon's already turned on to 6 damage. You're getting 2 treasures. Your opponents are getting 2 treasures as well, but you're getting 2 treasures to also ramp yourself into your commander. If you look at the cost, it goes from 3. You have 3 to be able to play the Descent to Avernus, and then you get the 2 treasures the next turn, so you at least have 5. You can play your commander, and then you have Descent with the commander. It's a really good combo. If they don't deal with that, it ain't like straight up game winning, but it's pretty dang good. You're in a good spot. You'll most likely tempo them. They're also taking damage, and you're taking damage too, but you can race them. Race them, Speed Racer. Heuristic Study. This is just one of those cards that, again, kind of like the One Ring, should be in every blue deck if you want some value. It's just annoying, and it's very good. But you can replace it if you don't like these kind of cards. But yeah, 2 colorless, 1 blue, enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may draw a card unless they pay the 1. You're going to pay the 1? Sometimes they don't pay the 1. Most people won't pay the 1. They just get annoyed. They just say, no, just draw. They don't care. Pretty great. The Lost and the Damned. Another really, well, I guess new in the Warhammer 40k deck, but an interesting card. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control from anywhere other than your hand, or you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, create a 3/3 red spawn creature token. Every cascade is a creature. A token, a 3/3. Pretty good. The whole point of the deck is to win via combat damage. Or pinging, I guess. You've got the Ruinous Power, another one of those value cards you just put on the battlefield and you just gain a bunch of value every turn. It's an enchantment, 2 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose an opponent at random. Exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may play that card, and you may spend mana as though it were any mana of any color to cast it. When you cast a spell this way, its owner loses life equal to its mana value. So this helps turn on Abaddon, but it also just gives you a little bit of value. And now we're into the lands. Nothing crazy with the lands here, so that's going to be a dual land there, fetch land, dual land, tri-land, dual land, basically tri-land, dual land. They're a total of 4 islands. You've got Luxury Suite, another dual land, a total of 4 mountains. Basically a tri-land, dual land, fetch land, pinging land, which is a dual land as well, dual land. There's a total of 5 swamps. And then Takanuma, Abandoned Mire. basically an additional swamp because it just comes in and taps for black. It's just that great. But it doesn't come into play tapped, which is even better. And then it also has channel, 3 colorless, 1 black, discard Takanuma Abandoned Mire, mill 3 cards, then return a creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each creature you control, legendary creature you control. This is basically just a flex spot because it doesn't come into play tapped. There's no reason not to run it. And it doesn't hurt to go get to mill some cards and then get some cool creatures. Back to your hand, of course. Training Center, another dual land. There is a couple of cards that are a little heavy on the black mana source, like that one Bloodletter of Axolots. So this just helps with that. It's not really required. There's not really any other creature like that. Most of the black mana symbols on the cards are just singletons. So if you're playing on like a more of a budget, you could remove this. A lot of the cards like that, you can even just remove Bloodletter as well. He's like a $10 card. So that's $40 right there. Just get him out of there. Another dual land there, and a tri-land here. Let me know in the comments, has anybody ever cycled this card? I just fetch land and I get them, and I just use them. I can't think of a single situation. I mean, maybe because all of my decks just run 10 fetch lands, and then you just go get the tri-lands ASAP. I don't know. I like never have cycled these cards, so. But that's Abaddon the Despoiler. It's gonna be fun. I don't know when I'm gonna play this. I was going to use this in the league for next month, or I guess I should say this month for December. But I decided that I think I'm gonna go with the Reanimator. The Reanimator just seems more fun and more powerful. Cascade is definitely super fun, but I worry that having no interaction with no counter spells or anything is gonna be in a league situation. Not as try-hard as I like to be. I want to win, you know? I play to win. But this deck here, though, Abaddon, I think you play for fun. So, more chaos. You don't have any control over what you're cascading into for the most part. So, yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and see you all in the next one.